Tim McGinty. I'm the Cuyhoga County Prosecutor, and I want to thank you for being here today and all the attention you've given to the case and the coverage you've given to this case on an important issue. Although profoundly, sir, do you mind? Although profoundly disappointed with today's verdict, I respect the legal process we have followed here, and we accept the judge's decision. I urge everyone else in Cleveland and elsewhere, especially those who shared our hope for a different outcome, to do the same. The rule of law, so fundamental to our American society, demands nothing less. Second, I want to thank the prosecutors and staff of the Cuyhoga County Prosecutor's Office who worked and formed a team and worked with enthusiasm and dedication to achieve justice. I am extremely proud of this team. I'm extremely proud of the work they performed and we performed together. First, I want to thank and introduce Rick Bill, Chief of Special Investigations. Rick did an outstanding job on this case, working with the various coroners, forensics evidence, proving what happened here. We started with very, very little evidence and had little help, and were able to create evidence through the sounds, the ballistics, and angles that we worked. I want to also thank two of the major trial unit prosecutors, James Gutierrez and Sherry Royster. I also thank a number of assistant prosecutors who also helped in this case: Erica Barnhill, Adam Chalupka, Alan Regas, our appellate unit chief and supervisor, Sarah Denny, an assistant prosecutor, and James Gallagher, a new assistant prosecutor. And we received help from law clerks Colin Show, Paula Hanna, and great oversight by the major trial unit supervisor, Sal Aladala, Lindsay Raskin, another assistant prosecutor, and Dwayne Deskins, behind me. There he is. First assistant prosecutor and juvenile division chief. I want to thank our communications and public policy director, Joe Froelich, and his assistant, Rihanna Corrales, Andy Nickel, our criminal division chief, Jane Platt, our chief of staff, and paralegal Linda Quinn, who did an enormous amount of work in this case. And I want to thank John Soraya, who is here somewhere. Okay, on behalf and representing the BCI, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, the Ohio Attorney General Office. They did a tremendous amount of work in this investigation that began, an extensive investigation that began 2.5 years ago. I am extremely proud of all of their efforts and the case we presented. A series of tragic errors on November 29, 2012, in a subsequent trial of Cleveland police officer Michael Brelo, forced all of us, the city, the community, and the police, to confront some tough issues that many would have preferred to avoid or postpone. The trial forced us to examine how and why so many errors were made and flawed assumptions made, and that could have led to the deaths of 2 unarmed people, and including a totally innocent, a trapped and essentially kidnapped mentally ill passenger and a panicked, disturbed petty criminal driver. After a chase of more than 20 minutes, 20 miles that involved more than 100 officers, that was led by a group of supervisors who ignored their training and division of police rules. To highlight the danger that an out-of-control police also pose to innocent public and to one another, one only need examine the friendly fire they inflicted upon their own police cars. Only by the grace of God we did not have a number of police deaths. I am convinced that this prosecution in this case will prevent future deaths of police and civilians in the future. If we all listen to the powerful and undisputable lessons that the Heritage Middle School shootout has taught us, there will never have to be another Brelo trial. If we correct the failures that made this tragedy possible, the city and its citizens do not have to suffer through another such fiasco. And let me cover some of these lessons. Number one, I believe the police department has developed a new appreciation for the necessity of real training for chases and when and if they are to be permitted. This has been demonstrated recently. The local media can elaborate on a very recent successful chase called off, and the person was arrested the next day. They had enough to identify him, as they did here. They had the plates. They knew who the individual was. The plates were good. The identification was solid. They need to keep chasing him, just pick him up the next day. He was not the Napoleon of crime. 2, second lesson, far more training in the understanding of the proper use of deadly force and in the methods of de-escalation before the last resort of killing a fellow citizen are obviously needed here. 3, discipline within a police department is absolutely necessary to maintain control and professionalism. If the rules are routinely disregarded, penalties must be imposed or history will repeat itself. In this case, Cleveland has disciplined. Cleveland has taken action. They have suspended or fired dozens of officers, and I believe this will discourage future disregard for their own rules. Civilian review and oversight from outside the department's insular culture would benefit this city and this department's performance. 4, this case also points out that retraining is needed for returning combat veterans who served in police departments. Soldiers are trained to kill the enemy at war. In high-stress situations, a veteran can easily revert to what has been taught to him by the military unless properly retrained as a civilian officer. They are very different jobs. In civilian crisis, de-escalation and patience are to the police advantage, and minimal level of force necessary to calm the situation is preferred. Lesson number 5. Better equipment and coordination, such as inexpensive road spikes or the productive use of a helicopter, could help when chases are necessary. But one piece of equipment that is about to change our world in Cleveland and across the country, particularly Cleveland since we're going to be new at it, and will create absolute accountability, is the video cams. We're having video cams in Cleveland. The mayor has bought video cams, body cams for every police officer in Cleveland. And we have bought the dash cams through forfeiture funds that obtained from criminal prosecutions. The dash cams and body cams will become the unblinking, credible eyewitness to all that happens when police and citizens interact. Complaints of police misconduct will fall dramatically, as has been demonstrated in other cities, and the evidence obtained will greatly aid the prosecution of criminals, and the truth will prevail. Lesson number 6. The mentally ill account for a disproportionate number of the problematic use of force and deadly force encounters in Cleveland and elsewhere across the country. Many people who once would have been institutionalized now have no place to go. They cannot be controlled or treated at home. They oftentimes are incapable of sufficient income for proper treatment, and they end up homeless or in homeless shelters, under bridges, or on the streets, unmedicated, sometimes paranoid and schizophrenic and dangerous. And the drugs and alcohol they may use to self-medicate will make it even more difficult to control them when there is a confrontation. The police now are the ones forced to deal with the mentally ill and disturbed and out of control daily. Exhaustive, specialized training protocols and additional police officers are needed. Recent cases and lawsuits in this city alone have shown us that there is a need to improve our performance and capability there. It will be cost effective in the long run when we look at our lawsuits that have been paid out. And just the confidence and just the fairness and just the humanity of it in not killing the mentally ill when it's avoidable and recognizable and when the hints and the signs are there. In the aftermath of this incident, Mayor Jackson wisely invited the Department of Justice back to Cleveland to evaluate its division of police. These discussions and negotiations continue, but the end result should be a better trained police force that looks to de-escalate dangerous situations, builds bridges to the community, and embraces a new culture of accountability. And let me say at this point that no one appreciates or loves the police more than prosecutors. Every time I drive through the graveyard, I think of the burials I have been to and the friends I have lost and the people who have dedicated their lives to the city sometimes lost their lives in the line of duty. Do not mistake this for some anti-police prosecution. This is a pro-police prosecution, pro-citizen prosecution, and I appreciate the support that I have received from a great number of police on the job and retired throughout this effort, who recognize that this will make a better police department if we have better discipline, if we have better supervision, better training, and more numbers as they're seriously understaffed. Lesson number 8, Cleveland has agreed to have an independent police agency handle future use of deadly force investigations. And this office encourages all cities in this county to do likewise. We are looking at patterns across the country. We have patterned from taking cities in the Southwest as our actual pattern. We've already done this successfully. The Cuyhoga County Sheriff Cliff Pinckney has agreed to assume this important responsibility for Cleveland, and a task force has been formed to handle these use of deadly force investigations. We appreciate the funding of Cuyhoga County and the executive Budish that has provided this. This is an expense to the county and a great expense to form this task force and to do these independent investigations. You have seen from this trial and others that it takes a great deal of time and investigation to do the scientific and other investigation necessary to examine a case. The City of Cleveland agreed to use the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation to independently investigate this Heritage Middle School case. And the Bureau of Criminal Investigation did a tremendous job at great time and expense. At times there were 25 to 40 individual detectives working on this case. And I want to personally thank Attorney General Mike DeWine and his commitment to justice. It's greatly appreciated. He has shown a commitment to justice throughout the state. He's been a great Attorney General. He has shown his commitment to, he's been like no other Attorney General in my lifetime. And he has demonstrated money, commitment, time, and manpower to prosecute whether it be deadly force cases or the rape kit cases, which he's made Ohio the leader in the nation in solving these untested rape cases. Lesson number 9. Better laws can discourage felony high-speed failure to comply chases and their subsequent violent endings by imposing higher and mandatory penalties on the fleers. We also need laws that mandate safer, and we have done this in the past. I led a law in the late 90s that made some mandatory penalties. It's since been reduced. We are seeking to have the higher penalty reimposed. We also need laws that mandate safer policies and more accountability from police departments in high-speed chases. It creates accountability and incentive. These laws will reduce the dangers to innocent motorists and to other police officers. Nearly a person dies a day in America from these high-speed chases. And we've never seen a high-speed chase like this before. Strong, in lesson number 10, the final lesson I'm going to cite here today that we appreciate, strong leadership and sound decision-making within the police department by those sergeants and lieutenants who are actually in the field and have responsibility to call off unduly dangerous pursuits is absolutely essential. They have to have control. These supervisors must carefully weigh the risk to the public versus the real danger imposed by a fleeing suspect. Can police identify the offender by other means via license plates? Is this a traffic ticket or a murder he's fleeing? Is it day or night? Light or heavy traffic? The distance covered, the speeds, etc. And most important, is the offense or offender being chased worth the real risk of killing innocent civilians or other police? These are difficult decisions that must be made in the field, and that's why there's rules and regulations regarding numbers of officers that can be involved and how closely they should be monitored. Each individual police officer can call off his or her own chase. And in this case, many officers did, and we appreciate the fact, and it should be noted, that police officers and leaders in the 1st, 4th, and 5th districts refused to allow their own cars to join this massive chase that grew out of control on November 29th. And going forward, the policy of this office will continue to be all use of deadly force cases by police in Cuyhoga County will be reviewed and decided by the grand jury, as was this case. After a complete and thorough investigation, the results will be presented to the grand jury, and any additional evidence from that grand jury, the grand jury's desire to have additional evidence, will be obtained and presented to them as requested. If that grand jury believes that the civilian death at the hands of the police was not a justifiable use of deadly force under Ohio law and the guidelines created by the Supreme Court of the United States, then the grand jury will bring charges against those involved and we will prosecute. This ultimately, in all cases, or thus ultimately in all cases, the decision will go back to the people. It is also the policy of this office to make public the independent investigations of police actions. We did so in this case with the BCI investigation, a voluminous accounting of the investigation. Our pursuit of justice for Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams is not over. 5 Cleveland police supervisors have been charged with dereliction of duty by the grand jury and will be prosecuted by this office for failing to control the reckless and potentially deadly police chase that ensued in this case. We look forward to presenting another vigorous prosecution on behalf of the state of Ohio, the people of Cuyhoga County, and the victims' families. Today's verdict is part of a sea of change that began over 2 years ago with this case and others across the nation. This case prompted the United States Department of Justice and Governor John Kasich and the Attorney General Mike DeWine to investigate the patterns and practices of police departments, including Cleveland's, around the state. These investigations have highlighted areas where help is needed or deficiencies exist, including training, accountability, and transparency. Although not fully implemented, changes for the better have already begun. This is a different country than it was 2.5 years ago on November 29th. The Department of Justice investigation continues, and we are confident practices will improve and benefit the city of Cleveland from whatever the results of their findings and agreement is. Our goal is to improve the quality of justice that our citizens receive. This tragic experience has already forced a culture change within the Division of Police and a needed re-examination of the use of deadly force. The end result will be less secrecy, additional transparency, and accountability. Citizens and police themselves will be the safer for it. This was a challenging case, no doubt, but I would not hesitate to do it again if the facts and the law demand it. I was proud of our effort to seek justice in this case, and we will continue to seek justice on behalf of the people. I do not want to answer questions that are sought to inflame the situation, so I will entertain questions through emails. And anybody has an email, we will carefully respond to it. I thank you for covering this case. Joe Froelich will give you the email address to send it to, and I thank you very much and conclude this press conference.